It is Friday night edition of Catfish on Ice. We don't get to say that very often. Welcome in, everybody. This is episode 181 of Catfish on Ice podcast with Chad Minton and Kyle Perkins. As we're getting into the Stanley Cup Playoffs here, it's off-season edition here for the Nashville Predators. Kyle, how you doing, man?
Doing pretty good. Been enjoying the nice warm weather we've been having up here in Kentucky. Nothing like what you've got down there, but just enjoying the sun a little bit. Got a little rosy cheek action going on.
Yeah, you do. You do got some rosy cheeks over there, man. Nice.
Yep.
All right.
I'm working on Santa Claus, so.
There you go, man. Awesome. I love it, man. I love it. Even Kentucky deserves a little sun, right? Why does Florida get to steal everyone's sunshine? Like sunshine should be for everybody, right? Let's normalize sunshine here. Like Kentucky deserves all the sunshine that they want. So I'm glad you're getting a little sunshine. Because honestly, I could give you a little bit because we have too much down here, probably, if anything.
Mm-hmm.
All right, guys. Here's what we're getting into. Episode 181 of Catfish on Ice. Obviously, it is the offseason for the Predators, but we are in the Stanley Cup playoffs right now for the NHL, and it never disappoints. It's why we all love it. Even if your team's not in it, you cannot turn away from the Stanley Cup playoffs if you're a hockey fan. It is not disappointed through the first couple games of each series. Kyle, have you been watching it, man? We're going to get into what's really sticking out to us right now, but Kyle, what are you thinking so far about the playoffs?
A lot of good games. I mean,
yeah, man.
I had the Kings to beat the Oilers, and then when they actually beat the Oilers that first game, I was very surprised. And then Florida actually putting up a fight against Boston.
Good for them, man.
I'm sure that's what's happening with Rich. He's probably sitting there just kind of freaking out right now because Florida's coming back on him in like the last 2 minutes of the game.
So our co-host Rich cannot make it tonight. We normally don't record on a Friday night. We normally record early in the week. First of all, everybody, going to give you a fair warning. Friday night Chad is a lot different from Monday night Chad. I have a full pint of beer with me. I'm not ashamed to admit it. We are going to get through this episode tonight. Weekend Chad's a lot different, everybody. All right?
Fast and loose on
take that for what take that for what you will. It's a Friday night edition. It's off-season edition. I have a lot of opinions that you may or may not agree with, and that's okay, about this off-season coming up for the Predators. And we are going to get into that, about what Barry Trotz had to say in his opening press conference. Officially, he doesn't take over till July 1st. We get that, but we all know that's all official stuff. He is already in charge here, people, all right? I'm tired of being corrected on social media. Actually, he doesn't take over till July 1st. I get that, all right? But he is already running things right now.
And David Poile, he's not magically gone on July 1st. He's still a consultant. So Absolutely. He's still around.
Those two are, I don't want to say peas in a pod, but they are definitely very close. And David Poile is going to be giving all of his advice to Barry Trotz, and Barry Trotz is going to be very welcoming of that. So all of these people who criticize David Poile, and hey, I'm friends with all of you. I care about all of your opinions, but just pump the brakes a little bit on thinking that magically, because Barry Trotz is now the GM, that all of a sudden we're not going to get some of the same David Poile tendencies that you hate so much. That's all I'm saying. Let's pump the brakes a little bit. Let's give it some time before we really see a dramatic shift in how this organization operates. And I don't even know what some people think they're hoping for at this point. But we're going to get into that. That press conference was very interesting. He was very forthcoming. He was very genuine, I thought. Can't wait to talk about some of the quotes that I took from it. what Kyle thought from it as well. Top storylines from the playoffs so far. Kyle, that Minnesota Wild Dallas Stars series, can't get enough of it. Can't get enough of it.
Excellent series. And what about the guy from Winnipeg who had the 75 stitches on his face?
We got to talk about that too. Yeah, we got to talk about that too. Yeah, for sure. That was pretty crazy for sure. We're going to talk about the offseason outlook. We got to talk about, the Predators. They don't have a ton of free agents this offseason, but there's still a lot to talk about here in terms of you got two big restricted free agents you got to take care of, in Cody Glass and Alexander Carrier. We're going to discuss what we think a contract should look like for them. We are going to discuss Mark Borowiecki. He is an unrestricted free agent, one of the few. He's the only UFA on the active roster for the Predators. That is actually kind of rare to go into an offseason and only have one UFA on the books on your active roster. You've got some UFAs in your prospect system you got to address, but Mark Borowiecki is your only UFA. So I kind of want to talk about that because he is such an important person to this organization for many reasons. So I want to get into that. Some other things that have come up down the pipeline a little bit. Devin Cooley has changed agents. I don't know if you saw that, Kyle. That came out like a couple hours ago.
I had not saw that. That's interesting.
He is Preds Prospects. He used to be with On the Forecheck and SB Nation. Now he's joined Penalty Box Radio. Preds Prospects, one of the best follows you can have if you want to know what's going on with all of our prospects in the Predator system. He quote tweeted, so basically Devin Cooley has gotten the same agent who runs Andrei Vasilevsky, is the main goalie that this agent represents. So we got to touch into that a little bit. Kyle, if you want to kind of look at that tweet before we get to that. We're gonna discuss Ryan Johansen's future. I feel like people are not talking enough about I don't want to sound really mean here because I appreciate everything Ryan Johansen's done for the Predators, but he kind of feels like the outsider here going into the offseason. And it's going to tie into a quote that Barry Trotz had in his press conference. Maybe I'm reading a little too much into it. Maybe Kyle thinks I'm reading a little too much into it. But Barry Trotz had something very, very interesting in his press conference to say about veterans. And I can really only tie it to one veteran. That's Ryan Johansen. So we will do that. That's what we got in store for episode 181, Friday night edition. Presented by DraftKings, promo code THPN. We'll tell you more about DraftKings later in this episode, our amazing sponsor that you got to get a part of and sign up with the promo code THPN to get all these amazing offers. All right, Kyle, let's dive into our opening face-off. That's the offseason outlook for the Nashville Predators. What is your biggest storyline for you, Kyle, going into the offseason? Is it all the draft picks the Preds have? Is it Cody Glass and Alexander Carrier? What are you most focused on about this Nashville Predators team as we are in the offseason? The playoff streak's over. We're not in the big dance this year. It's kind of a weird feeling, but you see some of these really talented teams and how fast they are, and you're like, could we hang in these series? Probably not. So what are you thinking, Kyle? What are you thinking, man, going into this offseason? It's a loaded question, right?
Yeah, it is. I'm probably going to lean more to the Glass and Carrier contracts. I really think those are going to be important. And that shows you a lot of what they're thinking for the future of this club. Glass especially, but I think a lot of people overlook Carrier and how well he played, especially minutes with Yossi, and when him and Ekholm played together, he played extremely well. There's just those two guys are young guys who could be sort of foundational pieces moving forward. So I think those two contracts are extremely important. Glass's contract right now is like no money, pretty much. He's $874,000 is his contract.
He earned he earned himself a payday.
And Carrier's even less. He's 733. So both of these guys deserve raises. It's just going to depend on how much they're willing to pay, and you really don't want to lose either of them.
We're going to expand more on what we think contracts could look like for each of these players later in this episode, but that is just in this opening face-off segment here of episode 181, that is a good point. So for me, in this offseason, my biggest focus point right now is on the 13 draft picks and how does Barry Trotz in his first draft as an NHL general manager, this is his first go-around as a general manager of a team, a franchise, they gave him his first NHL head coaching gig. He's getting a first with this franchise in two different ways. As a head coach back in 1998, now as a general manager. He cares about this franchise. He cares about this community. He has 13 draft picks that David Poile worked his magic at the trade deadline. You can have all the criticism in the world that you want about David Poile. A lot of it is deserved. But that man went out there and gave Barry Trotz some pieces to work with. Yep. You can't argue that. You cannot argue that. You're not being honest with yourself if you're not going to say that. So I want to see what Barry Trotz does in this draft with all those draft picks. He's not going to use all 13 draft picks. He is going to maneuver. He's going to move around. I want to see if he decides to move up in this draft and make a power move, because this draft class is loaded with offensive talent, wingers galore. And that's exactly what you need in this pipeline right now. You've already got a lot of it. Let's build on it. Let's get more of those types of players. So I can't wait to see. Obviously, the draft is in Nashville, so that makes it even more intriguing. But I want to see how Barry Trotz, it's just natural. I keep wanting to say David Poile. I want to see how Barry Trotz handles 13 draft picks. That's going to be very, very interesting. I don't know if I've ever been more intrigued by an NHL draft than I am about this draft this coming summer with 13 draft picks.
It's a big deal. I mean, very big deal.
Absolutely. I think he definitely maneuvers and works his way up in the first round to get the prospect that he wants. I'm sure the scouts for the Nashville Predators are working around the clock right now to figure out, who do we want really bad? Who do we like so much that we cannot risk? Of course, we got to wait for the draft lottery to see exactly where the Predators are going to pick. They have a 0.5% chance of landing the number one pick. What do you think about those chances, Kyle?
I think they're pretty low.
So you're telling me there's a chance, just like the playoff odds going down the stretch of the season. Now we're in the same boat for Connor Bedard. I mean, they're going to probably pick between 10 and 15, right? I mean, that's kind of like where they're going to land. So that's an okay spot. This draft class is, like I've been saying, and we're going to do a whole draft episode later when it gets closer. It's loaded with a lot of offensive talent. So I'm not really so worried about where they pick. But if there's a certain player they really, really like, they're going to move up to the top 10 if it presents itself. They'll deal one of those second-round picks to get the player they want.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I am most – I don't think the Preds have ever had this many picks in a draft. Like I'm used to there was that one year, I think it was 2018, the Predators didn't pick till like the 4th round or something crazy. So you had all those years where the Predators were all in. They were trying to win a Stanley Cup. They had all their veterans. They had all their ducks in a row. The table has turned. Now they're loading up on draft picks. They're trying to do what the fan base has been begging them to do for years. So it's an exciting time. Even though they didn't make the playoffs, it's still an exciting time if you're looking at it for the long term.
Yes. I'm sorry. I just read something about one of the prospects that could drop to around Nashville potentially.
Mm-hmm.
Matvey Michkov. Yeah. That kid's something else, but his contract in Russia runs through 2026. Ooh. But he is the same level of player as a Bedard.
There you go.
So, but they're still predicting him to get drafted even with that contract.
But this is why you want to build draft capital here, because you hold more of the cards. You have more leverage. You have more negotiating power when you're talking to these other GMs. So if you're Barry Trotz in your first draft ever as general manager, you've got these chips to play here. You can dangle that 2nd round pick out there if there's a player you really like and you really want, and you can move yourself into the top 10, which is a really strong position to be in this year's draft class. So I think the Predators are going to make a power move. I think that they're going to be they're going to have some of the most power in this draft this year. Not only because they're hosting it, that's just perfect timing, but because they've got some leverage here. They've got some chips to play. And they can go out and hopefully their scouts do the job that they got to do to pick the right guy. Obviously, it's not a perfect science, but the Predators are going to be able to get who they want is my point I'm trying to make right now. They're going to get who they want, most likely.
Short of Connor, I think whoever gets that first pick is going to take him regardless of.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's a foregone conclusion.
But top 5, top 10, I don't think is out of the question at all. And is
definitely top 10. Definitely top 10. They can work their way into the top 10 for sure. We have to wait and see what the NHL draft lottery results do, but they can get themselves into the top 10 and get themselves a generational type of talent this year with those 13 draft picks that they have.
With how that normally goes, I predict the Oilers will get the number 1 pick.
Oh God! Stop. Yeah, let's hope not. All right. With that said, let's move on here in episode 181. First of all, I plan on going to the NHL draft. I'm not going to miss that for anything. Even though I live down in Florida now, I will be making the road trip back to my hometown of Nashville to go to the NHL draft. So I haven't even seen how tickets are for this thing.
They haven't released them yet.
Yeah, they haven't released them yet. But I will be there for that. I am not missing that for anything. I will be there. Name your price is kind of how I feel. I will be there for that. Can't wait for it. Don't know if I'll be there for the NHL awards. That's a few days before the draft happens, but I will definitely be there for the draft. So any of our viewers or listeners, let us know in the comments if you're going to plan on attending the NHL draft. Would love to meet some of you because I think it's going to be a really good time. I know the Predators have already announced that they're trying to do an indoor-outdoor type of thing. Basically, so a lot of it will be inside Bridgestone Arena, one of the best arenas in the world, but they're going to be trying to do some fun things outside the arena as well. So stay tuned for that. They haven't released a lot of the details yet on it, but I'm sure those things will be coming out soon. And of course, all the tickets and all that stuff will come out soon as well. So plan on doing that. Cannot wait for that to come back home for a little bit and do the NHL draft. So yeah, let's dive into Barry Trotz's press conference. He did that this past Monday We're recording this episode on a Friday, so a few days ago was when Barry Trotz did his kind of introductory press conference, kind of made it official type of thing, kind of laid out his vision of what he is thinking about. Thought there were a lot of really good, honest, and unfiltered things that he had to say. Very honest. I don't think it was a lot of cookie cutter type of stuff he said. I appreciated that. He was very honest about the fact that there's a huge gap between the Predators and some of these elite teams we're watching in the Stanley Cup playoffs. A lot of the teams we're about to talk about in the next segment when we kind of talk about what the playoffs are happening right now. But Kyle, kind of tell me some of the things that you really liked that you heard from Barry Trotz, or maybe some things that kind of caught you off guard.
Nobody's safe. That was the biggest takeaway that I got from his whole press conference was there is nobody safe on that roster. You will move down lines or you will find a new home.
I love it. Yep.
And kind of goes back to his famous thing he told Matthias Ekholm back in the day was, if you're scared, get a dog. Quit playing hockey, get a dog. So I don't think Barry's going to take many prisoners when it comes to setting up this roster. And all of his praise for the young guys. Those were the two biggest takeaways. And speed. He mentioned speed specifically. You have to be fast.
He said we got to get faster.
Yep. So I like that.
And that makes me, that was the big one that stood out to me as well. A lot of things you just mentioned, Kyle, were the same things that stood out to me as well. The speed thing. So we all kind of understand that as fans, as viewers of the Nashville Predators on a regular basis. We realize that a lot of times the Predators get exposed when they play these really fast teams, these teams that live off the rush, these teams that just keep coming at you relentlessly. Teams like the Hurricanes, teams like the Avalanche. We saw the Avalanche in the last game of the season. And I know it didn't mean anything. I know the Predators had nothing to play for in theory. Like they couldn't make the playoffs no matter what happened. They could keep the Avalanche from winning the Central Division in that game. And that game was actually pretty damn close for a while.
Yeah.
But, they got this guy named Nathan MacKinnon who is not even on this planet the way he plays. Did you watch that game, Kyle? Dude, that dude is like...
Oh, he's insane. If Connor McDavid was not in the NHL, Nathan MacKinnon would be the only one getting talked
So am I crazy to say that I think that Nathan MacKinnon is actually underrated?
Yes.
Because I think he is.
I agree.
I don't think people talk about him enough.
I agree. He does everything well. I mean,
he single-handedly won that game against the Predators in that season finale.
Yeah, he was just like, hold on, y'all. I know half the team ain't playing, but I'm going to do this on my own.
I
mean, the guy is just that good. And like you say, I don't think he gets talked about enough. It's only basically McDavid and Matthews that you ever really hear about.
The really close inner NHL circles, of course they talk about him. I'm talking about like the broad, like casual. For how good he is and how spectacular he is, he does not get talked enough about. So I want to give my credit to him when we're talking about the season finale against the Avs. The Preds hung in that game just like they've done all year. Just like they've done all year with I don't want to call it a scrap lineup because that's disrespectful to the Evangelistas and the Sherwoods and the Novaks. They're not a scrap lineup. But what I'm trying to say is the Predators had to throw together a group of young, unproven players down the stretch. And even in that season finale, even though nothing was on the line for the Predators,
they never stopped fighting.
Dude, they went toe-to-toe with the Avs. They did. And I know the Avs sat some players as well. They did, and whatnot. But the Avs had a lot to play for in that game. They weren't just like going to that game like nothing mattered. So Nathan MacKinnon happened, and that's all well and good, and that's fine. Like, you can tip your cap and be like, okay, we lost to Nathan MacKinnon, basically. But I was very happy with coming out of that game, even though they lost for the Predators, from the Predators' standpoint. It sucked to lose, but I'm happy with ending the season that way. And you just tip your cap that Nathan MacKinnon beat you, I guess. I don't know. But go ahead.
Victor Arvidsson just got hurt.
I hate to hear that.
Yeah.
We got Friday night hockey here going on, NHL playoffs, Stanley Cup playoffs. You got the Wild. They just jumped ahead 1-0. We're at the first intermission. Wild up on the Stars. 1-0. That series, dude, has been brutal. It's been a bloodbath. Those fan bases literally hate each other. I have been sitting back with my popcorn. You know the memes that people like to share when someone sits back with their popcorn. Oh, my God. Those two fan bases on social media have been going at each other ruthlessly. I have a lot of friends and a lot of accounts that I follow on both sides. I think they're both very passionate fan bases. Don't have anything ill to say about either fan base. But you know the whole story of the North Stars. Minnesota fans don't like Texas fans so much because you stole our team. And I can't blame them for that. No. I get that. Minnesota fans, that's a hockey state. That's college hockey, youth hockey. I mean, that is like a hockey state. And they don't like Southern hockey. So in that sense, I kind of lean with the Stars because they don't like Nashville and Tennessee hockey either. So from the Southern standpoint, I kind of want to side with the Stars because Minnesota fans are hitting that low-hanging fruit of, oh, you're not even a real hockey state. How many junior hockey clubs do you have? How many NHL players from your state do you have? I'm like, come on, guys. That is low-hanging fruit. Don't want to hear it. So I'm kind of like torn on which team I want to pull for in this series. What are you thinking, Kyle? Who are you pulling for if you have to pick?
Well, it's hard to say I'm pulling for either of them.
Well, you got to pick, man. I'm making you pick.
If I pick with my head, it's Dallas. So,
all right.
But then again,
I'm tough too. But I'm 55% Minnesota, and that's only because of one, the Marc-Andre Fleury effect.
That's what I was about to say. I wouldn't mind seeing Marc-Andre go for another run, but
I like Ryan Hartman. I loved Ryan Hartman when he played for the Preds in his very, very short amount of time. The Wild don't have a cup. The Stars do. I don't know, man. And I'm still kind of bitter about 2019 and how the Stars knocked us out. That was like the beginning of the end. That was the beginning of the end for this Preds run, their Stanley Cup window. Yeah. It slammed shut. This Dallas Stars, ladies and gentlemen, slammed the Stanley Cup window shut for the Nashville Predators in 2019. So I'm still a little bitter about that. So I'm that's why I love this first round series so much, because I really can't hate either of the teams.
Mm-hmm.
I can't really pull for either of the teams. I just want to see a great series. And it's got 7 written all over it. It really does.
There's a lot of these that are looking like 7.
Well, all 4 series in the Western Conference are tied 1-1 going into Friday night. That's pretty cool. That's great for the NHL. I know the NHL loves that. I still got the Stars winning in 7. We're going to reveal our original Stanley Cup brackets that we made on the really crappy NHL Bracket Challenge app that glitches out for everybody. But
I just remade because mine didn't take.
Dude, I'm not even exaggerating. It took me like 3 hours to complete this bracket. Not because I didn't know who I wanted to pick, but because the NHL doesn't even know how to do a freaking sports app. We're in 2023, and the NHL doesn't even know how to do a fantasy bracket pick 'em. I was picking brackets for March Madness in like 2010 when I was graduating college, and it worked out just fine. There was no glitches. It worked out. And here we are in 2023, and the NHL can't even, like, on their own website, NHL.com, they can't even put out a bracket challenge that doesn't glitch out. It's pathetic, but it's the NHL. It's right on par. But yeah. I think I got my bracket submitted. I do. So we'll share it on the screen. I want to talk a little bit more about Barry Trotz's press conference, though. Another thing, Kyle, you brought up that I'm totally on course with you is the veterans on notice.
Specifically.
Yeah, the elephant's in the room here, everybody. I mean, if you look at the roster right now, the roster that's on the books going into 2023-24, I mean,
there's when you're talking a lot of sinners.
I mean, guys, when you're talking, let's just be honest about it here. When you're talking about veterans that are actually untouchable, a lot of them already got traded away, except for one, Ryan Johansen. Matt Duchene is not going anywhere, anybody. He's not going anywhere. Not right now. He's not.
He's played too well.
Yeah. Philip Forsberg's not going anywhere. Colton Sissons, probably not going anywhere. He would have, if they were getting rid of Colton Sissons, it would have been at the trade deadline.
Getting rid of Colton Sissons would be the dumbest things this team has done in a long time.
Yeah, exactly. He's not going anywhere. I thought it was possible he might get dealt at the trade deadline, and I was very happy to see that didn't happen. But when you, that's what I'm saying. So when you talk about veterans, when you talk about what Barry Trotz said in terms of that, it was very cryptic. It was he didn't mention Ryan Johansen by name, and I'm not putting words in Barry Trotz's mouth per se. Like, I'm not trying to say he said anything he didn't say, but I'm just going to go with a straight quote from the Preds official website of what he said. Quote, "Some of the older players may not get some of the minutes that they did in the past. So they've got to sort of remake themselves a little bit and find their role." Okay, so when you break down that quote, maybe he is directing that to the entire roster in terms of veterans, but there's not that many veterans to really direct it to when you really look at the roster. I mean, they got young. They got young down the stretch, and when you look at the roster next year, I don't know how much the roster is really going to change aside from maybe adding a free agent here and there. So that really seems directed at Ryan Johansen more than anyone.
Yep. Well, didn't he say Ryan was going to have the best summer of his life?
He did.
That was...
And I mean,
and I'm a Ryan Johansen fan. I really like him. I think he's a great dude. I would love to sit down and have some beers with Ryan Johansen. That sounds like a great time to me.
Yeah.
But Barry came out and said, how does he get that half a second back?
And it's really unfortunate, like this whole skate blade incident. I mean, that's like a really odd injury to suffer. And, you know, one thing about Ryan Johansen is that people forget is he's got a physical element to his game. So for a John Hines system, Ryan Johansen is a prototypical type of center because he does check hard. He doesn't take flack from anyone. He's actually a pretty physical center. That dude doesn't take anything from anybody. He doesn't fight, but he checks hard. He's a big body. He fits the Hines system perfectly. And he's a great veteran. I mean, he is. He's a good leader in the locker room. He's the type of player you want. But you got to make tough decisions in this business. Sometimes you got to let players go that are great locker room guys, but you know what? You just don't fit our vision anymore. So if there's one really crazy, like, jaw-dropping move that happens this offseason, it's going to be that Barry Trotz somehow finds a trade partner for Ryan Johansen.
Yep.
That's going to be the only really jaw-dropping move that happens this offseason. I could see him adding a very low-key, like, free agent maybe somewhere. I don't think he's going to go swinging for the fences or anything. But other than that, I mean, it's really about if you do keep Ryan Johansen into 2023-24, is he going to be on the third line? Probably. I don't think you can put him in the top 6 necessarily.
I mean, who are you going to take out of their spot to put him back? Tommy Novak, who's came up and proved what he can do. Cody Glass, who's proved what he can do.
So those are your top 2 centers going into 2023-24?
I don't even know because you've got Parsonen as well.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got 3 guys who arguably deserve to be in the top 6. And then you have Colton Sissons, who's your next best center. Yep. And, I mean, you're running out of spots.
Exactly.
And Ryan's not a winger. He's not going to go play wing. How many times has it been brought up that he doesn't shoot enough as a center, much less as a winger?
Mike Twitter jumps in on the comments. He says, the Wild isn't as Preds North as it used to be, but I still stand with the Wild. All right. So we got a Preds fan chiming in, says he stands with the Wild. And Mike Twitter also says, yes, don't want to get rid of Sissons. Hey, everyone knows that I'm like, it's borderline it's actually borderline a little creepy how much I'm a fan of Colton Sissons. Like, everyone knows that I'm a fan of Colton Sissons. Like, I've been very clear about that on this podcast. Kyle, what's going on in this Kings game? Is Victor Arvidsson going to be okay? Have we heard anything about that?
He is playing right now. I just saw him out on ice. He took
protect RV at all costs. I don't think we have to ask many Preds fans this. We're pulling for the Kings over the Oilers.
Well, yeah, because everybody likes to see Connor McDavid not win because he's a robot with no personality, and
he's AI generated, dude.
I mean, he's Chat GPT in human form.
I think Elon Musk created Connor McDavid in a lab.
No, if Elon did it, he'd have a flamethrower or something cool. That's a Bill Gates robot right there.
Oh, that's even worse. Okay,
that's Windows XP.
So we're only midway through the first period. It's still 0-0 Oilers and Kings. That series is tied 1-1. They're in game 3. The Wild continue to lead the Stars 1-0 on a goal from Matt Zuccarello. Man, I always forget about that dude. Zuccarello is a sneaky good role player.
Yep.
Ryan Hartman and Kirill Kaprizov get the assist. So I'm telling you, man, that series, dude, has 7 written all over it. I could see the Stars retaking the lead in the second period coming up here. So we'll focus on that. We'll stay in touch with that. How about the Islanders responding and getting a 5-1 win over the Canes in game 3 back home to make that 6-2-1?
That's impressive. I really didn't think they had that in them. I thought it was going to be a sweep.
Good for them for responding, not laying down on the mat. The Islanders were one of those teams that snuck into the playoffs, kind of like I've always thought of the Islanders as Preds East because the Islanders are a very defensive-minded team as well, and they don't score a lot of goals. They lean heavily on their goaltender and Sorokin, and well, we all know what it felt like when we played the Canes in the first round in that COVID year. We took that game to 6, didn't we? Right? We won 2 at home. Yeah, we tied it. Yeah, if I remember correctly. So good for the Islanders for at least stealing a game there at home in game 3. So they got that series 2-1. Bruins respond after screwing up in game 2 and getting upset by the Panthers. They win game 3, 4-2 over the Panthers, back in the Panthers' friendly confines of Sunrise, Florida. So yeah, there you go. That's your final scores from Friday night Game 3 action of the Stanley Cup playoffs here. I still think the Bruins are going to easily dispatch the Panthers in that series.
Yeah, I see it going 5. I don't know that Florida is going to get another win out of that one.
Allmark makes 29 saves on 31 shots, so he has a solid game. Taylor Hall scores a goal and an assist. They're just loaded, man. The Bruins are just pick your poison.
And they still don't have Bergeron.
I mean, Pasternak was relatively quiet for his self. He only had a goal. Only. I say that like that's all he had. But you hold Pasternak to just one goal, but you've got other guys who can come in and chip in when he's not completely dominating. So
there's so much skill on that lineup. It's just.
And then talking about last night's action, how about the Tampa Bay Lightning and the Maple Leaf series? I think that's the series everyone's focused on in the East, at least for me anyway, because, you know, the Maple Leafs, they want vengeance for the Lightning knocking them out last year. So you're thinking about that series. Can the Maple Leafs finally get over the hump and get out of the first round? Don't tell our buddy Rich that.
Well, we know he is a Tampa Bay.
That dude, hater. I'm gonna send him a Tampa Bay jersey in the mail next Christmas. I'm gonna send him a Vasilevsky jersey.
I think that I don't understand the hate. I mean, they're good.
No, I totally get it actually because he likes the Bruins, man. I mean, it makes total sense.
True. Okay, now I get it. Now, when you put it in that context, it makes sense.
Rich, we miss you, by the way, man. I know you. Rich has got some family stuff to attend to. He's spending time with the family. That always comes first. And we threw him a little curveball doing a Friday night episode. But he'll be back for the next episode. Rich, we hope you're doing good, even though we still don't understand why you hate the Lightning so much.
I will say this. Okay. The Tampa Bay fans that I interacted with at the Stadium Series game were some of the nicest fans I have ever met from an opposing team.
Yeah.
They were all super nice people. So, Tampa fans,
I mean, they're typically –
I
mean, I run into them a lot down here where I live now, and they are – I mean, they're more knowledgeable than you would think. Like, I know people think, oh, they're just bandwagon jumpers. But people forget the Lightning won a Stanley Cup in, like, what was it, 2006, 2007?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, it was early in their existence. And then maybe they weren't very good for a while, but they've actually been, even before they won a Stanley Cup again, they've been a pretty good team for a while. Mm-hmm. So they've got a really strong core fan base down here. And it's a very knowledgeable fan base, and a lot of them actually don't kind of like the Preds. It's kind of weird. Maybe they're just trying to be nice to me when I talk to them, but I get a lot of love when I'm wearing my Preds hat around these parts. They're like, oh, like the Preds, like we kind of like them, like they're kind of our Western Conference team, you know. So yeah, it's like a little mutual respect thing here. So, Rich, how about you ease off a little bit, not hate the Lightning so much? But that's a fun series, though. That is. Oh, yeah. That's for me. You've got the Lightning Leaf series. You got the Wild Star series. Those are my two series that I'm like, can't miss it. Locked in. Both of those series have 7 games written all over them. Although last night's game, the Lightning slept walk through that game. You would have thought it was a preseason game the way they showed up for that game.
Yeah. Not so pretty.
They've got to figure it out. And I was worried about the Lightning going into the playoffs because they had been playing that way to close out the regular season. They come out in game 1, make a statement. They knock out the Leafs in game 1, steal a game on the road. And I'm thinking, oh, wow, they can really make a statement if they take game 2. And they come in game 2 completely lifeless. I mean, the Maple Leafs just stomped them. It was over in the first 5 minutes, basically. And so now you're thinking game 3 back in Tampa. Who's going to take the upper hand here? That's the pivotal game in this series is game 3. If the Leafs can take game 3 and take home ice advantage back, I think you can pretty much bury the Lightning and say it's over. But if the Lightning can take game 3, retake control of the series, you've got yourself the makings of probably a 7-game series. I think game 3 is more of a must-win for Tampa than it is Toronto.
I think so. I agree.
I think Toronto's probably the more complete team, but Tampa's got that championship pedigree to them. Yeah. They got Stamkos.
They know how to do it.
And Vasilevsky just got freaking cooked. He got cooked in game 2. He looked awful.
Was weird.
He looked awful, man. He looked stunned. He looked like he was playing his first playoff game in his career. So
yeah, that was a very abnormal performance from Vasi. So I think you're going to see some drastic improvement there coming into the next game.
Absolutely. Totally agree. Other than that, the playoff series are kind of going kind of the way we kind of expected them. The Seattle Kraken Avalanche series is definitely interesting. I'm not surprised at all that the Kraken are going toe-to-toe with the Avs. The Kraken are a great team.
They're good. Ilya Tolvanen scored again, by the way.
If Rich is listening right now, he's probably rolling his eyes. He hates being reminded of Ilya Tolvanen. Oh man. All right. Well, with that said, how about we reveal our brackets? Oh yeah, I love that. I can see it. Let's reveal our brackets. I'm going to see if I can share my bracket challenge, the glitchy NHL app. But I should have it. Let's see if I can find it. While I'm finding that, Kyle, how about you tell us who you had as your first round winners?
My first round winners. So I had Vegas beating Winnipeg. I had the Kings beating the Oilers. The Avs beating the Kraken. And Dallas beating Minnesota in the Western. In the East, I had Boston beating the Panthers. Then I had, despite what I just said, I had Toronto beating the Lightning. Then I had Hurricanes beating the Islanders and the Devils, which is looking like a terrible pick to beat the Rangers.
Okay. So for everyone who's listening right now, we submitted these brackets before the game started. So I don't want everyone to think that we're like submitting our brackets 2 games into the playoffs or anything. But, okay. So we share in a lot of our picks here, Kyle, but I think there was only one first round prediction that we disagreed on. I'm going to share mine on the screen. There's my full bracket. It's kind of small.
You had Tampa.
Full disclosure. I do. I took a chance there, guys. I took Tampa in 7 over Toronto. And I also, it's kind of blocked by the DraftKings logo, but that's okay because DraftKings is our amazing sponsor and they can block whatever they want to block. But I had the Rangers beating the Devils. The Shesterkin effect is why I took them. And then if it's kind of in small print, but on the bracket challenge, they make you pick how many games you think each first round series is going to go. And so I went with that. And that was really difficult to come up with. But I had Boston in 5 over Florida. I mean, Florida's already taken 1, but Boston's up 2-1. I got Tampa in 7 over the Maple Leafs. That is my big chance I took in this first round. Like, I'm going to be very proud of myself if that ends up becoming true. I took Carolina in 5. Islanders just won tonight, so that might not. I'm still extremely confident that Carolina will win that series. But maybe it goes 6, maybe. And then I had the Rangers in 6. So I need the Devils to step up a little bit, because even though I had the Rangers to win that series, I think the Devils, they need to show me something here. I had the Avs in 5. That looks like my worst pick in the first round right now. That was a dumb pick. I was so wrong on that one. I'll admit it right now.
Yeah, whenever I tried to do my bracket challenge thing, and it didn't take, I had that same thing set up. I had Avs in 5, so don't feel bad.
I should have given Seattle a lot more respect. So that's my worst pick of the first round so far, is taking Colorado in 5. I got Dallas in 7 over Minnesota. I think that's the toughest toss-up first-round series of the entire playoffs. I mean, those teams are toe-to-toe. Take your pick. You can make an argument for either team. So I took Dallas in 7. We'll see how that goes. A really, really good Stanley Cup caliber team is going to lose that series. They're both really quality good teams.
Yep.
Vegas, Winnipeg. I took Vegas in 6. So we'll see. That's another series that's tied 1-1. And then finally in the West, I took LA over Edmonton in 7. So that's how I got. That's how I'm going with the first round. So I think, Kyle, we're pretty much on the same page, except for the Rangers and the Devils series. Or no, you took the Leafs. You took the Leafs over Tampa in 7.
I took the Leafs, and you took the Devils I took the Leafs and the Devils. So
we're different on 2 of the Eastern Conference series.
Yep.
All right, let's go to the second round here. I took a chance again. I took Dallas over Colorado. I am a big believer in Dallas. If they can put it all together, they can win a Stanley Cup this year. They literally do have a complete Stanley Cup caliber team. They have the goalie. Ottinger is an underrated top 5 goalie in this league. They've got the defense. They're not. That's not their particularly their strength defensively, but they're good enough. They're good enough. They're good on special teams, and then their talent, their overall superstar talent, with Jason Robertson, Joe Pavelski, Rupe Hintz. I mean, they are loaded down the line. We're not even talking about veterans, Jamie Benn, Tyler Seguin. I mean, they are just loaded. So if they can put it all together and they can get past Minnesota, which is going to be a challenge, then they can win a cup. They can. So that's why I don't even know if Colorado is going to make it past Seattle, but I do take Dallas over Colorado in the second round. And then Vegas over LA. My thing about Vegas is they kind of like Dallas in a way. Like, they've got the veterans, they've got the talent. I feel like they're going to put it all together to make it Vegas, Dallas, Western Conference Final. What are you thinking in your predictions on the second round?
Well, looking at your bracket versus mine, our Western Conference is the exact same all the way through. So,
okay. Well, great minds think alike, so it's okay.
So, yeah, I'm with Vegas over LA and then Dallas over Colorado.
All right. There we go. Let's go to the East then. So the East, as much as I kind of – so first of all, here's my thing about Tampa. I got Tampa beating Toronto. Let me just say this. Tampa is not the dynasty Tampa anymore.
No.
Like, they're not that team anymore. They've got some good players. They're still a great team. They're not the dynasty team anymore. So I don't see them getting past Boston in the second round. I think it could be a good series. Maybe they push it to 6. It would be a series worth watching. But I don't think they have enough to get past Boston in a 7-game series. So I got Boston taking out Tampa in the second round. And then I got Carolina beating the Rangers in another series that I think could definitely go 7. I think they're 2 evenly matched teams. But Carolina is a very balanced depth team that I just think that if they put it all together and play the way they're supposed to play, then no one can beat them. So that's what I got going on in the second round of the East. What did you have, Kyle, in the East?
Well, I had Boston beating the Leafs because I want Toronto to associate Boston with pain. And then I had Carolina beating the Devils. I think the Devils aren't quite there yet. Maybe in the next 2 years, they're on their upswing. So I just don't think they're there yet.
Yeah, I think you're right there for sure. The Rangers are the type of team where you feel bad for them if they fall short again because their window kind of feels like now. But I think their window will be open next year too. They're going to be around for a little bit. So you kind of look at the Rangers as a team that they're capable of winning it this year. But the East is a gauntlet. We've talked about this leading up to the playoffs in previous episodes. The East is just, there's going to be a lot of good teams who don't even make it to the second round in the East that are that good because the East is that stacked. I think it's way more stacked top to bottom than the West is. I think the West is a little more watered down.
Close.
Yeah. You think the East is more top to bottom better than the West?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. I'm there with you on that one. Yeah, I'm there with you. All right, so then here's how I got it going. So I got Dallas and Vegas. We both got Dallas, Vegas, right?
Yep.
Playing in the Western Conference Finals, I got Dallas beating Vegas. And then on the Eastern Conference side, not an easy choice, but I took Carolina to beat Boston in the Eastern Conference Finals. I gotta stand with my preseason prediction, Kyle. I'm not completely standing with my preseason prediction though, because I originally had the Canes over the Avalanche, and I'm breaking away from that. So I'm taking 50% of my preseason prediction. I'm still sticking with my Canes, who I had winning it all in the preseason on this very podcast. Go check my receipts. I took the Canes. I'm going to stick with them, but I'm moving out the Avalanche. And that was even before the playoffs started. I made this bracket before game 1 of any series happened. I moved in the Dallas Stars. So I got the Dallas Stars losing to the Canes in the Stanley Cup final.
Well, I have the Dallas Stars beating the Vegas Knights to go out of the West. And then I have the Boston Bruins beating the Canes to come out of the East. My reasoning on this is just the veterans from the Bruins. You've got these guys that have all done it before. You've got Bergeron, who will be back by this point. You've got Marchand, Krejci. These guys know how to win it all, and I think that will be the deciding factor versus the Canes. And then I have Dallas and Boston in the Stanley Cup final. I'm rolling with Boston. I think they're just a powerhouse, and if they're
a team of destiny, man.
Yeah, they've really at this point, if they don't, the season is kind of a disappointment because you set the record for the most.
Yeah. But can you really call it a disappointment when, if you go back to preseason predictions, people were saying the Boston Bruins might not even make the playoffs? with everything they were dealing with.
Yeah, with Marchand being out forever.
And McAvoy was dealing with his issues. But I will say that Boston fans don't deal with losing very well.
No.
So your statement you just made is actually really accurate if you're talking to a Boston fan right now. If the Bruins don't hoist the cup this year after the history-making season they just had, then I can promise you that Boston fans will feel exactly what you just said.
Oh, it'll be the exact time you want to take up listening to Bill Burr's podcast.
They will feel like it was a major disappointment. So you're right. You're spot on there. You are. But me as an outsider looking in, I'm not a Bruins fan. I can look at it and think, you know what? You weren't even supposed to have this kind of season this year. So you should still be proud of it. So it's kind of like a perspective thing here. It's a perspective thing. But that's why we love the playoffs, man, because there's a lot that could happen here. There is no clear-cut prediction. So we'll see how it goes. But we both agree that the Dallas Stars will be in the Stanley Cup for the Western Conference. The only thing we really broke apart on is the Canes and the Bruins.
Yep.
So if this bracket works out, though, then we're in for a good one, because I'm telling you right now, that's a really good one there. So that's how we're feeling about that. Let's see what's going on with the scores here. Let's update you before we tell you about DraftKings. Stars and Wild, that's the game we're focusing on right now. Coming up midway point of the second period, it's 2-1 Wild over the Stars. Let's see. The Stars just got a goal just recently to make it 2-1. You've got a game where it's low scoring. You got both goaltenders playing a good game, as you would expect. So we will have to focus. First of all, Kyle, what do you think about the goalie dilemma that the Wild have kind of made themselves? They go with Gustafsson in game one. Gustafsson gives up 2 goals, takes it to double overtime. The Wild win on him, only giving up 2 goals, going to double overtime. And then they switch to the Hall of Fame goalie in Marc-Andre Fleury. And I get it. I know that it's kind of like a new thing that's going on in today's NHL, where teams like to flip-flop goalies in the playoffs. But I can't forgive that.
No.
Not in that. And I love Fleury. And I get it. I get the desire to switch to your Hall of Fame goalie in Marc-Andre Fleury, but you do not bench Gustafsson after the game he had in game one. You don't do it. You just don't do that. And I think it cost them really badly in game 2.
Yeah, I mean, you look back the year that UC played his first playoffs. Preds didn't look good. I mean, but they stayed with him. And, we had Pekka sitting on the bench. So it's tough decision but you kind of got to run with who brung you. It's just.
I mean, it's one thing if Gustafsson has a shaky game in game 1 and the team wins in despite of him. Like, let's say, game 1, Gustafsson gets roasted for 4 or 5 goals, but the Wild still somehow find a way to win. Then, of course, you switch to Fleury. But he gave up 2 goals, and it went to double overtime, and your team won. You don't switch from that. I just don't understand it, and I think it cost them. They've gone back to do Gustafsson tonight in game 3. And I don't want to jinx him, but he's got 10 saves on 11 shots faced. So it's still kind of early in the game. To be halfway through the game and you've only faced 11 shots, It's a very defensive game right now. Both teams have not gotten a lot of shots. You're talking about 24 shots on goal midway through the game between both teams.
It's pretty low shot count, especially for teams that have Kirill Kaprizov and Jason Robertson on them.
Both teams are 0 for 2 on the power play. Both teams have taken 4 penalty minutes. The Wild are leading in hits 17-6. But other than that, it's a very just back and forth defensive, who's going to make the first big mistake type of game. And you would expect nothing less from division rivals. So, yeah, very interesting stuff. The Wild are on the power play right now. So we'll see what happens here with that. But, yeah, I thought that was a crazy bad decision to make. And then, of course, Kyle, what did you think about the Dumba hit on Pavelski?
It was a hard hit.
It got people really up in arms, man, in game one.
That was a hard hit.
Yeah. It was a postseason hard playoff hit.
Yes.
And that's how he plays. Dumba's always been that type of player. There was a lot of back and forth, man, on social media about this. And then, of course, Wild fans were sharing, okay, so you're mad about Dumba, but let's share you the multiple times that Ryan Suter was taking cheap shots on Kaprizov. Did you see those?
Yeah.
Cheap ass cross checks by Suter.
Oh, yeah. There's no defending them at all. It's just.
I think Suter's hits are way cheaper than what Dumba did. I'm just being honest there. I mean, Dumba's hit is a bang, bang, hard hit. I'm not necessarily saying that it was a legal hit. He should have gotten a penalty, and he did get a roughing penalty for it. But Ryan Suter's hits that I've been seeing on clips that people are sharing, it's just straight up dirty.
Yeah.
I mean, he's just literally out there not even impacting the play. He's just out there cross-checking a guy. It's just skating.
Yeah, there's no call for that. It's just.
I mean, Suter's, that's how he is, though. He really has no value anymore as a player. He was a great defenseman in his time, but really the only thing he serves out there now of value, and Stars fans can't stand him either. He's actually kind of a waste of space on the ice right now. And he's out there doing cheap shots left and right. So if you're going to compare Suter to Dumba's hit was hard. It was a rough hit. I'm not saying it didn't deserve a penalty. It did, but that's playoff hockey. Suter's hits are not playoff hockey. That's just cheap.
Yeah, it's Bush League stuff.
Bush League is a good way to say it. Yeah. So we're gonna keep an eye on this score here. It's still 2-1. Wild leading the Stars. That's just a big one. We're going to tell you about DraftKings real quick. DraftKings is our official sponsor, and just like the NHL playoffs are going, this is the best time of year if you're a big-time sports fan, especially if you love hockey and basketball. The NBA playoffs are going on just like the NHL playoffs. Both leagues have 7-game series. They have the same playoff format. So if you're like a dual hockey basketball fan right now, you got no time to spare. You're watching both leagues. You're into both of them. So it's NBA playoff time. That means big hoops action with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Get in on the excitement of every game with the touch of a button. New customers can make a $5 pregame moneyline bet and score $150 in bonus bets if their team wins. Plus, everyone can score a no-sweat same-game parlay every day during the NBA playoffs. Open the DraftKings Sportsbook app, opt in, and place a same-game parlay on any NBA game. If it doesn't hit, you'll get a bonus bet back up to $10. So even if you lose, everybody, DraftKings will reward you with a bet. And so for me, my NBA matchup. I'm not the biggest NBA guy, but I do like watching the NBA playoffs. Just like the NHL playoffs, you got these 7-game series. You got these teams that can't stand each other. I am all in on Memphis Lakers right now. And you got the Memphis Grizzlies chirping at LeBron right now, getting under LeBron's skin. And so that series is tied 1-1. So that's the series that I'm focused on right now. And I think that chirping at LeBron is probably a bad idea if you're the Grizzlies. Probably shouldn't be doing that. You've done poke the bear. Don't poke the bear. Just don't do it. Why would you poke one of the best players to ever play the game? So I think LeBron is going to open up a serious can of, I think we know what I'm talking about, that type of can on the Grizzlies. But whatever you believe, whatever series you're watching in the NBA, just go ahead and do it right now with our DraftKings Sportsbook. Download the app now and sign up with code THPN. New customers can make a $5 pregame moneyline bet and score $150 in bonus bets if their team wins, only at DraftKings Sportsbook with code THPN. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In Massachusetts, call 800-327-5050 or visit gamblinghelpline.org. In New York, call 877-8-HOPENY or text HOPENY. In Kansas, call 1-800-522-4700 on behalf of Boot Hill Casino Resort. 21 and up in most eligible states, but age varies by jurisdiction. Eligibility restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details and state-specific responsible gambling resources. I felt like I just ran a marathon reading all that.
Yeah, you've missed like 2 goals get scored and taken away.
I feel like I just ran like 6 miles, Kyle. All right. What did I miss, man? Wild just scored.
Wild scored, got taken away, and then given back.
Oh, my God. All right. So there we have it. Good stuff. All right. Here's how we're going to wrap up episode 181. First of all, we were talking about Ryan Johansen earlier, and I didn't really give my complete thoughts on that. And we also got to talk about Cody Glass and Alexander Carrier. And then we're going to end this episode with a segment on better or worse. And we're going to compare a lot of the non-playoff teams to the Nashville Predators, who are also a non-playoff team, which hurts me to say. But before we get to that, let's talk. I want to talk a little bit more about Ryan Johansen. We touched on it. Kyle gave his thoughts on it a little bit. Here's my thing. Here's what I would like to see with Ryan Johansen. If you can't find a really good trade partner, and when I say trade partner, I mean I don't want to retain a lot of salary in the deal. At that point, I'd rather just keep him. And as long as he's willing to buy into the system and take on a lesser role, which I don't see Ryan Johansen as having a big ego. As long as he's willing to buy into the system and maybe, I don't know. Like you said, Kyle, the center position is backlogged right now. So it's where do you find a place for him? I get all that. Are you really going to put him on the fourth line? It makes it difficult. It makes it really difficult. But I just don't know who's going to take him unless you have to retain some salary. And at that point, would it just be better off just keeping him? So that's kind of where I'm at with it. I don't think he needs to be in the top 6. I don't want him taking spots from Cody Glass or Tommy Novak or Juuso Parssinen. I don't want to see that. I don't want to see that. And he's not a winger. He can't play wing. He's not a versatile guy like Duchesne is, where he can play center or wing. So he's kind of stuck right now. He really is on the outside looking in.
Yes, very much so. It could end up being cheaper to keep him, but
I can't. But where, like you said, where do you put him? It's a very big dilemma right now. It's a very big dilemma.
Yes, It's
like, are you really going to start him on your fourth line as a center? Is he going to be okay with that? Is he going to? I mean, I just don't see how it's going to work. So we're going to have to focus on that. We're going to have to really keep an eye on that throughout the offseason. All right, let's move on to Cody Glass and Alexander Carrier. They're your two big restricted free agents. The Predators have already kind of taken care of some of their restricted free agents. They re-signed Michael McCarron and Kiefer Sherwood to minimum deals.
Two lower level deals. I have no problem with either of those. Great.
Yeah. $775,000, so nothing major. More of a prove it year type of deals for them. Let's see what they can do next year. Nothing to write home about, but you're glad that you keep both of them as depth players, if nothing else, especially Kiefer Sherwood. I mean, that dude earned it.
Down the road.
He was excellent. So I'm glad to see him. I thought Kiefer Sherwood might be in play to get a little bit more than that, personally.
Yeah.
But either way, I'm glad they kept him. So let's start with Cody Glass first, because I think Cody Glass is a little bit more straightforward and easy to talk about. You're not letting him go. You're getting him re-signed. It's a matter of what kind of a contract does he get. What do you think, Kyle? What do you think he's earned?
I mean, his last contract was a 1-year deal. I don't know if you try to give Cody a longer term deal right now, or you give him more of a bridge to like maybe a 2-3 year deal to see what he turns into. I think a bridge deal makes sense for him. Maybe something like 2 years, 2-3 years at $2 to $3 million.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah,
I think that would be very fair.
And I think if you can come to an agreement on that type of deal, then I don't even think it has to go to arbitration at that point. I mean, I think that's.
I really don't look for him to go to arbitration.
Yeah, I don't think so either. He's at 24 years old. I think that he just played his first regular season in the NHL. He played a little bit for Vegas here and there, but his first consistent playing time year in the NHL just happened.
Yeah.
So even if it were to go to arbitration, I mean, he's not really in a position of power where he can say, "Oh, I've earned myself some fat payday."
No.
He has earned himself, like you just said, Kyle. He's earned himself that bridge deal where he definitely deserves a raise. He should not be paid at the minimum anymore. So you give him, like you just said, Kyle, you give him that 2-year cushion, $2 to $3 million, not a high risk. The franchise is not going to want to take a high risk on him. Understandably so. He's not going to get some super long-term deal after he's only played one regular year in the NHL. So I think it's a negotiation process that honestly should go pretty smoothly, and they should be able to take care of it pretty quick.
Yeah, I would think so.
Alexander Carrier, I think it's a little bit more tricky. I don't think it's quite as straight cut as Cody Glass. What are your overall thoughts on that?
Carrier is how many years old? Where is it? He is 26 years old.
Yeah.
So he's not exactly young anymore. 733 last year. I mean, you look at Jeremy Lauzon's making $2 million. Dante Fabro's making 2.5. I think you put him in the same level as Dante Fabro. 2-year, $2.5 million. Yeah. I think that's a very, very good contract extension.
Yeah, I think that's fair too. Yeah. I think that what complicates Alexander Carrier's situation is obviously the injury. He didn't get to play a full season.
Yep.
And hopefully he doesn't take any more fights.
he's a lover, not a fighter. That is for
And
sure.
I remember that game, man, like it was yesterday. I appreciate him stepping up. I stick taps for him for trying, but
yeah, it ain't you, buddy.
Please, Alex. There's other guys out there who will take that fight for you. I know Tanner Jeannot's no longer on the team, but you still got Cole Smith out there. You still got Jeremy Lauzon out there. You got guys who will take fights. Just step back next time, man, all right? Take a step back. That's not your role. But I think that's a fair deal for him as well. People forget about Alexander Carrier. This dude is homegrown. He worked his tail off to get through Milwaukee, to get up here.
Forever.
3 years, 3 seasons, which is a long time, honestly. Mm-hmm. That's a lot. Like, for the average guy, for the average prospect, if you're a top-end prospect, you're not spending 3 seasons in the AHL. You're getting caught up before that. That 3-season mark is kind of like your cutoff point where you're either going to be a lifelong tweener where you're almost always in the AHL unless there's a lot of injuries, or you're going to get called up. So, yeah, for Carrier, he got called up. And I think he's been pretty good. He's got a good two-way game to him. I love the two-way element to his game. He is not one-dimensional. Whereas Dante Fabro, he's a little one-dimensional. So I got to ask you this, Kyle, and I think you'll agree with me here. Who's got the higher ceiling? Carrier or Fabro? I'm going to say Carrier without even having to think twice about it.
Yeah. I think you've got to go with Carrier. His offensive side is so much better. And I've hated on Fabro a lot. He played really, really well down the end of the season. He did. Played amazing. But he is not an offensive defenseman in the least.
Nope. He never will be. They hoped he would be. They hoped. Yeah,
but that ain't him. And that's okay. It's okay.
That's okay. But you see it in him. You see in Fabro's play, man. Like, he is not that type of defenseman. He's very smart in his defensive structure. He'll block shots. He's in the right place at the right time. He'll protect his goaltender. He does the dirty work. Yep. He makes a lot of mistakes exiting the zone, and he's got to clean that up. That's the biggest part of his game he's got to clean up. But if he fixes that part of his game and he never becomes a big offensive point scorer, then he still has a future in this league. Like, he'll be in this league for a long time. Fabro will be.
I agree.
But he's like a tweener, second, third pairing defenseman. On the right team, he can play on the second pairing. On a stacked team, he might be a third pairing defenseman.
Yep.
But he's got a place in this league. Alexander Carrier, if he continues to evolve his game as a two-way defenseman, an offensive driver, a guy who can transition the puck and get on the rush.
Yep.
He's got a way higher ceiling than Fabro does, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. So I think that is a huge argument that, you got to pay this guy. So unless something go ahead.
Trotz even said that he didn't see any reason why both of those guys should not be back.
Yeah. So unless something unforeseen happens, they're both going to be back. They're both going to be back. Now, it'll be interesting to see what the term is for both of those guys. That could be a little interesting. But, they're both going to be back next year. You have to get both of them back. Absolutely. And if Carrier does indeed resign, then you've pretty much got your top 6 defensive core set. Your D-core set.
Yep.
I mean, assuming everyone's healthy, you got Yossi McDonough, which was one of the best defensive pairings in the league analytically.
Yes.
I mean, people forget that they were together as a unit. Yossi McDonough were one of the best
people down
in the league. Yeah. So that's your hope, is that you're rolling into game 1 of 2023-24 with Yossi and McDonough, Tyson Barrie, and what are you thinking? Dante Fabro and Barrie? Who's your second?
I would do
Carrier,
Yossi McDonough, Carrier Barrie, and Lazon and
Fabro, yeah, and you can roll with that. I'm totally pleased with that.
Yep, I think that would
that's a solid decor, if you ask me.
Yeah, I see no problem with that defensive.
And then judging with how the season goes next year, Tyson Barrie is trade bait.
Kind of hope not. I'm starting to really like the guy.
No, I really like him too, but I'm just saying, like, that's in your cards.
Yeah.
I think when they acquired him, that was always a possibility.
Yes.
To use him eventually as trade bait. You'd rather that not come to that, but let's say next season is kind of a bridge, and it's kind of like a throwaway. I don't want to say a throwaway season, but let's say maybe next season doesn't go completely smoothly, and they're way out of the playoff hunt coming into the trade deadline, which could happen with a lot of young players. It could happen. Then maybe you deal Barrie, and you're like, hey, we flip him out of that trade. It could happen. But I like that decor a lot. And then you got Cody Glass. You expect Cody Glass to get even better. There's a lot of reason to think. No one ever said that a rebuild has to be a long rebuild. A rebuild can happen quick. So they can go in next season and still compete for the playoffs.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they're going to compete for a Stanley Cup next year. Don't put words in my mouth. I'm not saying that. But they can definitely compete for the playoffs next year. So
fair.
Let's end episode 181 with that. And it's actually a perfect segue from what we just were talking about. Better or worse? Let's talk about all the degenerate teams that didn't make the playoffs. And the Predators are one of those teams. All right. We're going to go rapid fire back and forth. I'm going to say a team, then Kyle's going to dish me a team. I will start. We're going to give each other non-playoff teams. And we're going to answer each other on, are the Predators better or worse off than that non-playoff team? I'm going to give you a really tough one to start off here, Kyle. I think you already know what's coming up here because it was a team that we eliminated from playoff contention. Calgary Flames. Better or worse off, Predators? Yeah, I figure I'll just come out swinging.
I'm going to say better because Calgary's kind of...
Okay.
I don't know. That one's kind of a wash to me because they're doing all this restructuring of their organization and changing general managers too.
Yeah.
So that's going to be interesting to see.
I would say that the Predators are slightly better off now than the Flames. I think the Flames are in a lot of trouble because they made that big trade. They got rid of Matthew Tkachuk, brought in Huberdeau, and it didn't all pan out.
Yeah.
Not like it should have.
So I'm going to hit you with a good one.
All right, give me a good one here.
Pittsburgh Penguins.
Oh, that was the one I was going to ask you next, so now I got to remove that one. All right, Pittsburgh Penguins. I'm going to say that the Predators are better off, and here's why. The Penguins, their shtick is done. All right, they still got Crosby, and he had one of his better seasons he's had as a pro, which is incredible. Everyone talked about Ovechkin. Crosby, look at his numbers. Some of his best numbers he's had in like the last 10 years individually. But the team around him has gotten really bad. Really bad.
Old.
Yes. That they have sold the farm on how far can Crosby, Malkin, and a few other guys, how far can they take us? And I see them going into a way deeper rebuild than the Predators are about to go into.
They have no prospects.
They don't have a goalie. They don't have a goalie they can truly trust.
No.
like we do. At least we have Saros to carry us through some of this.
Yeah.
So I say that the Predators are better off right now than the Penguins, but it's still a tough one, but I think they're better off. All right, here's mine for you. I'm Vancouver.
I think the Preds are much better off. Vancouver's a tire fire at the moment.
They're a tire fire. Are we thinking? Are we? This is like a Simpsons reference here. The tire fire.
Yeah, they're just. Vancouver is chaos. It's just.
But Vancouver was like they were like a borderline playoff team going into the season. Like God, they crashed and burned like so quick.
Yeah, it was. We thought the Predators' crash was bad.
I don't think a organization has crashed and sank so quickly since 1912 when the Titanic sank.
Lord. Yeah.
I think that was the last time. That's how bad the Vancouver Canucks are.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway. All right. So that was kind of a softball I just threw you there. I'm sorry.
I'm going to throw you another hard one.
All right.
Washington Capitals.
Oh. Ugh. I'm going to say, I hate to say this, but I got to be objective here. I think the Capitals are in slightly a better position than the Predators just because I don't know if Ovechkin's ever going to retire.
Yeah. He's going to play
and they
when
still
he's
got
50.
Ovechkin. And they've got, and comparing them to the Penguins, I actually think that Capitals have a better team around Ovechkin.
Oh, yeah.
Than the Penguins have around Crosby. So I will give the Capitals a slight edge over the Predators in terms of who's better off. I couldn't believe the Capitals missed the playoffs this year. That was a shocker to me.
Yeah,
out of all the Eastern. Yeah. I mean, you look at that. You look at the Capitals, they finished with a 35, 37, and 10 record. They finished with 80 points. The Predators finished with 92. The Capitals really fell apart down the stretch. I mean, they were in the playoffs for a big part of the season, and they just fell apart there at the end. So I think they'll be back next year. I think they're one of those teams they'll be in the playoff bubble again next year. They're not going to completely fall apart and become irrelevant. But that was a good one. I'll put them slightly ahead of the Predators, but not by much.
I think that's fair.
All right. We'll each do one more for each other. All right. Mine for you is this is a tough one. There's a lot of Eastern Conference teams here, but I'm going to throw you another Western Conference team because I think this one's a tough one. It's another conundrum in the Western Conference that we can't figure out why. St. Louis Blues.
I think the Preds are better than the Blues because they don't have Jordan Bennington.
No.
All right. I don't know. The organization.
That's another really disappointment. I had the Blues contending for second place in the division this year. So I will eat crow on that one.
Yeah.
I gave the St. Louis Blues way too much credit in the preseason.
Yeah, I think we all had the Blues up a little bit higher than what happened. It just seems like a lot of mismanagement going on there.
I mean, they traded Tarasenko away to which he wanted out. That marriage
he's wanted out for a long time.
And they sent him to the Rangers, and Tarasenko's doing just fine there.
Yep.
And you look at Bennington. I mean, dude, that dude is such a crybaby. I can't get over it. Like, I think that as soon as Bennington, if Bennington ever leaves the Blues organization, Blues fans will turn on him in a heartbeat.
Oh, the
only reason Blues fans defend Bennington is because he wears a Blues jersey.
Yep. Absolutely. 100%.
My buddy Mason, who's been on this podcast, I love that dude. We got to get him back on here, man. I've drilled him on Bennington before, and he is like a little hesitant to talk about Bennington. I think it's one of those things where it's like they're kind of stuck with him.
Yeah.
And we don't know how that feels as Preds fans because every goalie we've ever had around, we're blessed with great, honorable, classy goalies in Nashville.
Yeah.
So we don't know how it feels to have a punk between the pipes. We don't know how that feels. We're blessed.
Yeah. So,
all right.
My last one for you is another team that is going with some youth, but they also have the Iser plan, the Detroit Red Wings.
Oh, that's a tough one, man.
That is a tough one.
I don't even know how to answer that. Well, I got to pick one or the other. I'm going to say the Red Wings are actually, because I believe in Iser. The only reason I say that is Yzerman has a head start on Trotz in terms of being in the seat. And Yzerman's plan is a long-term plan he's been building up for a while. I'm actually a firm believer in the Red Wings doing it the right way. And 100%. They're trusting the process. We make the joke about I think it's the 76ers in basketball. They always make this joke about trust the process. And it's like the 76ers have sucked for like decades. And they always say like, trust the process. Well, I actually think that that's what the Red Wings are doing. And I will put the Red Wings slightly ahead of the Predators as far as better or worse off right now for non-playoff teams, just because I believe in Stevie Yzerman as a GM. I think he's one of the best in the league, if not the best.
And the reason why I brought them up is they're just a little bit farther ahead on that journey to rebuilding.
Exactly. Yeah. And
so much good young talent there.
They finished in the same standings as the Capitals this year. But the Red Wings have a lot of young players that if you're a Predators fan and you don't really follow the Eastern Conference that much, you might not even have heard of some of these guys, which is fine. I mean, that's understandable. I mean, it's hard to keep up with every freaking team in the league. But the Red Wings are a team that's building something, kind of like what the Avalanche did.
Yep.
And the reason why we know how the Avalanche did it is because we had to face them in 2018, and we were very lucky to beat them in 6 games, and that was when the Predators were at their peak. They had won a President's Trophy that year. And I remember scratching and clawing to beat the Avalanche in 6 games, the young Avalanche. And I remember seeing Nathan McKinnon and the look that dude had in his eyes. And even though we beat them in 6 games, I remember thinking, that team is coming. That team is coming for the league. And I kind of feel, in a low-key way, I feel that way about the Red Wings in a way. I think they could be the next one up. They're next man up. They're on deck. Like, they're waiting. So I'll put them slightly ahead of the Predators right now.
Yep.
Out of non-playoff teams. Another team I had hanging around there, I mean, we didn't mention these teams, but you got Buffalo, Ottawa, a lot of Eastern Conference teams out there. Ottawa is a team that was a big disappointment. Everyone thought Ottawa was going to take a step forward this season, so that's more of a disappointment. They're a team that's kind of trending down. Buffalo,
strangely. Buffalo is looking not bad. I mean,
I don't know how to put my finger on Buffalo right now. I don't know, but the Predators are right there in the midst of those types of teams next year.
Yeah.
I don't think they're going to be a dumpster fire. They're not going to be a complete bottom feeder, tear it all down type of rebuild team like the San Jose Sharks are or the Anaheim Ducks. I don't think they're going to fall that far. So a lot of it's predicated on what happens this offseason. Let's see if Trotz makes a maybe one free agency signing. I think the Preds are going to be pretty quiet in free agency.
Yeah, I think so too. I don't think they need to do much in free agency.
They can get a veteran. I'm not opposed to them finding a veteran if it's not a risky deal.
Yeah, something safe. I don't think they need to be going out and trying to make any splashes.
No, but they're not in a position to do that right now, and it wouldn't make sense. The message they made this season by selling at the deadline, it would not make sense to turn around in the offseason and make some splashy, risky edition. That would not make any sense.
No.
So, all right, everybody. This has been a really awesome episode to set the table for the offseason. Cruising right in. Stanley Cup playoffs. Our next episode, we will dive more into what's happening with the playoffs. We got some good draft content coming with you later this offseason as well on Catfish on Ice. We appreciate all of you watching throughout the season. It's been a lot of fun. It looks like it's the second intermission. The Wild are still up 3-1 over the Stars. So we'll keep watching that throughout the night. Kings and Oilers are tied 2-2 midway through the second period. So there you have it. All right, guys. Take care, everybody. Kyle, it's been a lot of fun, man. I hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend, dude.
You too.
All right, everybody. Stay safe. Take care. We will see you next time on Catfish on Ice, brought to you by the Hockey Podcast Network and DraftKings Sportsbook.